Hello mathematicians, we're now going to have a look at geometric sequences. So a geometric sequence is a sequence with a common ratio rather than a common difference. So if we start with the first term a, successive terms are formed by multiplying by a common ratio, r, where r is the ratio of one term to the term before it. So what we have is that if t1 is equal to a, then t2 equals a times r, t3 is a times r squared, t4 a times r cubed, and that leads us, as you will establish the pattern there, to the general formula for a term in a GP, that tn equals ar to the n minus 1. And the recursive relationship is that one term, tn, is equal to the one before it multiplied by r, which is the same as our definition of our common ratio up here. So if we have these sorts of problems, what can we do? So for our first question, if these three terms are in geometric progression, then that means that the ratio of one term, like x plus 1, divided by the one before it, is always the same. So x plus 4 over x plus 1 must be the same as x plus 1 over x. So if that statement is true, then if we multiply through by a common denominator, that will give us, and our common denominator is x times x plus 1, that will give us that x plus 1 squared is going to equal x plus 4 times x. And at this stage we simply expand things out, so on the left hand side, square of the first twice the product, square of the second, that will equal x squared plus 4x. Our x squared disappears, we've got then that 1 equals 2x, so x equals a half. For our second question, if the first term is 6 and the fourth term is 48, determine the 10th term. So the first term is a. The fourth term is ar cubed. So if we know that a is 6, then that means that t4, which is 48, is equal to a times r cubed. So we get then that r equals 2. So our 10th term is ar to the n minus 1, which is ar to the 9. So that's 6 by 2 to the 9th, and 2 to the 9th is 512, so 6 times 512 will be, I think, 3036. For our next question, if t3 is this and t10 is that, determine t5. Well, even in the one up above, what we were doing essentially was setting up two simultaneous equations. Here we have to be a little bit more explicit about it. So t3 is ar squared, and that equals 3. t10 is ar to the 9, and that equals 6561. So if we take equation 2 and divide that by equation 1, the a's will cancel out. We'll have r to the 9th divided by r squared, which will give us r to the 7. And we'll have 6561 divided by 3, which will give us 2187. Now if we take the 7th root of this, hopefully it's a nice number, I'll just find out. And it is, that's 3. So therefore, if r equals 3, if we put that back into equation 1, then a times 3 squared, which is a times 9, equals 3, so a equals a third. So finally our fifth term, t5, is ar to the 4th, which is 1/3 of 3 raised to the 4th power, which will be 3 cubed, which is 27. So in question 4, when we get our head around what we're told in the question, if in a GP the sum of the second and third terms is 20, and the sum of the fourth and the fifth terms is 320, so again, two pieces of information, find the common ratio, so find r and find a. So let's write down what we have. So the sum of the second and third terms. So the second term is AR, the third term is AR squared, and the sum of those two equal 20. So that's equation 1. And likewise, the sum of the third term, AR cubed, plus fifth term, AR the fourth, is 320. Now if we look at this, we can see that if we took from equation 2 R squared out as a common factor, and this is just by observation, trying to look for patterns, then we'll get AR plus AR squared in here. So this is just equation 2 rewritten, and we can then see that AR plus AR squared, well, hopefully we've seen it all along, is 20. So we get 20 times R squared is 320. So R squared is 320 divided by 20, which is 16. R is theoretically plus or minus 4, but we assumed that the common ratio is positive. And once we have our common ratio, then we can go back and put that into equation 1, and we'll have A outside of R plus R squared equals 20. So that's A outside of 4 plus 4 squared, which is 4 plus 16, 20. So A equals 1. So in 6E, if you have a go at these questions, there are a lot of parts, but only a few concepts. So in terms of the concepts that you need to get your head around to understand a GP, what are they? What are the things you really have to understand?